The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Friday, December 19th. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. It's less than a week to Christmas, and you're looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the weekend. I hear it's snowing in Michigan, or there's snow on the ground in Michigan, and it's really pretty. Okay, but it's cold. Let's see. Yeah, let's just jump in. The last few days, there's been a big conference, a big event out in Phoenix, Arizona, the Turning Point USA America Fest. America Fest. It's not even a conference; it's a festival. It's a big conference the Turning Point USA does every year, and I guess this year is the first year. After the murder of Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. All the leading, I don't know, what would you call them? America First, right of center, conservatives, people call themselves conservatives, all there, they're all speaking. It is a big gathering. I understand 30,000 people signed up for this. Many of them students. I mean, my dream, and yet they did not invite me to speak. That's the news. The news is I was not invited to speak in front of 30,000 of these students and young people, which is a shame, but not surprising at all. Anyway, it's turned out that Turning Point USA has become this battleground for the future of, I guess, the conservative movement, a certain segment of the conservative movement. Hard to tell who they're fighting for. The hearts and minds, I think, of the young people at Turning Point. Turning Point is a massive organization. I think it's got over 1 million members now. And who is going to shape this organization? Who's going to shape the direction, who's going to be the influential voices within the organization is really a battle between, I guess you would have to argue, two sides. One represented by Ben Shapiro, and the other represented by Tucker Carlson, Candace Owen, and Steve Bannon, and others, and they're or Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly's probably in that camp as well, and they're going at it at each other's throats yesterday and today in Phoenix. I mean, if you're there, it must be a lot of fun. It's really quite exciting. Anyway, Shapiro started it off yesterday morning. I think it was the first main speaker after Erica, Charlie Kirk's wife, spoke, and he just went all out on Candace, and went all out against Tucker, and just explicitly named names. I mean, here's a segment that the people who refuse to condemn Candace's truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here tonight. He's talking about Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, are guilty of cowardice, Shapiro said. If you host a Hitler apologist, Nazi-loving anti-American piece of refuse like Nick Fuentes, you ought to own it. He's talking about Tucker Carlson, and he names them. It was an all-out, also free press, published Ben Shapiro's comments in full, at least a version it's slightly edited for print, but in full. And he, holds no bar, goes after them. It's not clear exactly what he's advocating for, but he's clearly advocating for the deplatforming of certain people within the movement. He goes, So, for example, if Candace Owens decides to spend every day since the murder of Charlie Cook casting aspirations at TPSU, Turning Point USA, and the people who work here, and to imply or outright claim complicity in the cover-up of Charlie's murder, to spew absolutely baseless trash implicating everyone from French intelligence to Mossad to members of TPSU in Charlie's murder, or a cover-up in murder, then we, as people with a microphone, have a moral obligation to call that out by name. Erica and TPSU should never should have been put in the position to have to defend themselves against such specious and evil attacks, particularly in a time of mourning. And the people who refuse to condemn Candace, truly vicious attacks, and some of them are speaking here tonight. You heard what I already quoted that. He continues, take again Candace Owens' situation as an example. Friendship with public figures who do or say evil things is not an excuse for silence on the matter. Politics isn't the sisterhood of the traveling pants. Politics is about principle. And if you are willing to go sacrifice basic truth and simple principle in favor of emotional solidarity, you have betrayed your fundamental duty to the American people. I wish he took his own advice. That's all I can say to Ben Shapiro. His pandering to Trump and MAGA has been pathetic and and that was placing politics above principle. But anyway, he goes after all these people. He goes after Tucker Carlson by name. He goes, he basically says, you've got to make a choice. You got to make a choice. What is this movement? He says, for those of us who talk for a living, that is our job, to discuss America's problems with truth and evidence, to provide possible solutions, and to encourage people to succeed. We who speak to people on a regular basis, who have a microphone and an audience, have a duty to you. The duty to speak truth, the duty to speak from principle, not personal feeling, the duty to take responsibility for our actions, the duty to provide you evidence, to do more than conspiracize or just ask questions. Ask questions. If we fail in those duties, we ought to listen. You ought not listen to us. But he says it all begins with truth. We owe you that quest for truth. You owe yourself that quest for truth. True victory only comes through truth. So a lot of what Ben Shapiro has to say here, I can't argue with. It's true. And I give him kudos for standing up and speaking the truth and challenging the Tucker Carlsons and the Candace Owens and the rest of them. He is, relatively speaking, in this world, one of the better people. He's still really problematic, and there's still real problems with Ben Shapiro, and he's religious, and he's too much of a fan of Trump's, and in many respects, he sold out principle in order to be a fan of Trump's, but he is a fan of Trump's. But he certainly is head and shoulders and half a body above all these other creeps who either work for him at the Daily Wire or speak for TPSU. Right after Ben Shapiro, funnily enough, who came up to speak right after Ben Shapiro? None other than Tucker Carlson. Tucker's was, a speech a lot less articulate and logical and rational than Ben Shapiro's. That guy's pompous, Carlson said, saying he laughed at watching Shapiro's speech backstage. He calls for deplatform at a Charlie Cook event. That's hilarious. No, that's exactly appropriate. There have to be standards. At every event, there have to be standards. Some people should be invited to speak and others not. I was deplatformed by Charlie Cook. I was not invited back after my one speech at a major Turning Point USA event, and after a few other Turning Point events, USA events, not invited to speak again. They deplatformed me. How dare they? I should sue. Is there a way to... Anyway, you get my point. Carlson went on to rail against, the so-called cancel culture on the right, and he promised everybody he was not an anti-Semite at all. Even though Israel and the Jews were behind it all, he's not an anti-Semite at all. And he just went on and on. I guess there was one speaker between Shapiro and Carlson. Sorry about that. There was one speaker between Shapiro and Carlson. I was wrong. And that was actor Russell Brand, who wanted to bring peace. He wasn't going to get in the middle of this. He kind of talked about his version of Christianity and is anti-vax and hating the pharmaceutical industry and stuff like that. So I'm so glad they didn't invite me to this conference. Anyway, this is going on. If you missed any of it, you can still catch it. One of the things Tucker Carlson did say, which is important, he called out bigotry. I mean, he's very, very, very anti-bigotry. And he really, really, really doesn't like it when you go after Muslims. I mean, he really got upset by the fact that people are going after Muslims. He said that Muslims are mostly good. It's evil to be anti-Islam. It's just wrong. It's just wrong to go after Muslims. And he's very anti-Muslim bigotry. And the fact that there are people at TPSU attacking Islam, he just found that horrible. That's the bigotry. That's the one thing. The one group that actually, as a group, you could argue deserves some criticism. Because very few Muslims come out and criticize the Islamists, criticize the violent, criticize the anti-American. Then the Islamic community deserves criticism. In another segment, in the name of loyalty and commitment to group and to, I guess, family and tribe and whatever, Tucker Carlson said that if his brother went on a drug-induced murder spree, he'd defend him. He would defend him because he's his brother after all. And blood is thicker than murder, thicker than justice. So Tucker was there to straighten out these conservatives and give them some real conservative values. It's all about family. Even if the family's evil, even if members of your family are evil, you've got to defend them. To hell with justice, to hell with truth, to hell with responsibility. It's all about the tribe. Candace Owen, in the meantime, who was not invited, she was deplatformed after spending all this time criticizing Erica Koch and implying that Erica Koch knew the truth about the real killers of Charlie. She was not invited. She did not speak, but she did tweet. She was very upset at Ben Shapiro. And as usual, this is what she said, right? Every time Ben speaks, I feel more certain that Israel is involved in the killing of Charlie Cook. He's just way too invested in Charlie's murder. He never liked Charlie, and he's now suddenly pretended that he has a duty to defend his legacy. Ben only cares about Israel's interests. So Israel's involved. I mean, she's such a deep thinker. She sees through, the many layers, of what is going on. So, I mean, all these people. I mean, the fact that I have to say Ben Shapiro is a good guy in comparison, that's kind of scary because Ben's wrong on so many things, and he's been wrong, and he's become so much worse with the Trump years. And he's religious, and he talks about duties, and I'm against duty generally. But, you know, so the fact that Ben stands out as this amazing person relative to all the others says so much about these people now circling around TPSU. It's pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic. Sad. Yeah, I mean, Tucker also said during his talk, killing tens of thousands of children, making excuses for it on behalf of a foreign government is, is not that in there. It's antithetical to that. He's talking about the Bible. It doesn't make me a hater. It makes me an opponent of hate. And I'm not an anti-Semite, and I don't obsess about Israel. Well, maybe I do, but it's not because of anti-Semitic. It's because they kill children. Somebody asked if I'm against duty. Really, duty is the enemy of morality. You can ask me about that in a super chat. That would make a great super chat. Ask about why I'm against duty. Anyway, so Tucker spouting his regular lies, praising Muslims, attacking Israel. That's par for the course. Erica Cook, who did open the conference, did during her opening speech make one thing clear, and that is that she was on a mission, and her mission was to get Charlie Cook's friend J.D. Vance elected in 2028. So maybe she doesn't know that Trump is running again, but she is all in on Vance. It's going to be really, really interesting because if they can mobilize Turning Point USA to back Vance, who's not very popular in the general among people generally. Vance is also very close friends with Tucker Carlson. Fuentes hates Vance and slams him all the time. So this struggle within the conservative movement, the Turning Point, the young conservative movement, is going to continue, and it's going to get ugly. It's going to continue to be ugly. It's going to get uglier, but it is going to sustain itself, and it's going to be interesting to see how J.D. Vance positions himself. If he gets too close to Tucker Carlson, he'll be accused of anti-Semitism, white supremacy, and all of that. If he moves away from Tucker Carlson, he risks getting all the people who support Tucker to come out against him. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It'll be an interesting Republican primary. I think J.D. Vance, it's his to lose, and he probably is a shoo-in for the Republican nominee in 2028. And you should all prepare for that and decide whether you can vote for J.D. Vance over probably the governor of California. Seems to be the leading candidate. Maybe AOC. So here's one: AOC versus J.D. Vance. That should trigger you. That should get you going in terms of who you're going to vote for. All right, talk about contentious people on the right and the kind of people that I don't know where they fall in the Tucker Carlson Ben Shapiro, but Matt Walsh works for Ben Shapiro, so I don't know how all of that works. But you're seeing more and more of the language of white supremacy, the language of white nationalism, the language of tribalism, not just in terms of political tribalism, but racial tribalism. And one of the lines that you're seeing here is not just to equate Western civilization and the achievements of Western civilization and success of Western civilization with Christianity, which is a huge push in our culture. There's a huge push to do that in our culture. But Matt is also pushing the idea that Western civilization and all its achievements are basically the achievements of white men. Not even women. Women, forget it. You achieve nothing. You have no responsibility. You have you did not help bring about Western civilization at all. It's all white men. Now, I'm curious how he defines white, but we'll get to that. Anyway, I thought I'd show you a video about this. Maybe you'd be convinced as well. I mean, about the great achievements of white men. But note the extent to which they are collectivist and tribal and racists. I mean, just talking about white men the way he talks is a racist mentality. Racism is not just about condemning somebody for the color of their skin. It's also about praising somebody because of the color of their skin. It's taking credit for something because of somebody's color of skin. So let's watch this, and then we'll talk about, Thales' skin color. I don't know what Thales' skin color was. It was a man. I think it was a man. Did he identify as a man? But was he white? Let's watch Matt Walsh and look at that. Now the context of this is this article that came out describing anti-white discrimination in the workforce, which is clearly horrific and disgusting, and it's the same kind of racism. The difference, the issue is, what is the response to racism? How should you respond to anti-white or anti-any racism? Well, you can take the Kindi approach, which is, we need to recognize our race and we need to fight in the name of our race, and they're all racists and everybody's a racist. And so you can take the identitarian politics of woke left, or you can be an individualist. And what Matt Walsh is he's basically adopting the Kendi mentality. He's basically adopting racism to fight racism, which is what woke did forever. Woke fought racism by being racist. And it's exactly what Matt is doing. All right, here we go.
The biggest and most important downstream consequence of this open discrimination against white men is that everything in society gets worse as a result.
Everything in society gets worse because we discriminate against white men. Now, there's a sense in which that's true. There's a sense in which everything gets worse when you discriminate. But when you discriminate against white men, everything gets worse. Because only white men can run big American businesses like Microsoft or Google. Oh, wait, they're run by Indians. But only white men could run a complex, innovative, breakthrough company like NVIDIA. Oh, wait, it's run by a Asian. I think he's Chinese. Maybe only white men can run a company like Apple. Yeah, but does gay white men count? I don't think gay white men count because CEO of Apple is gay. I mean, really? This guy's a moron. I mean, Matt Walsh is a moron. Everything gets worse. Everything.
That is the second order effect that the compact piece doesn't really get into. It's the third rail, the part you're not supposed to talk about. But the truth, which everybody intuitively knows, is that things were a lot better back when white men were not being discriminated against by every institution in the country, but instead were running most of them.
What was better? What exactly was better? Were American businesses better then than they are today? No evidence of that. More entrepreneurs back then than they are today? No evidence of that. was, I don't know, where, in what realm? I mean, sure, a lot of things have gotten worse. Academia has gotten worse, intellectuals, but, maybe the movies have gotten worse. But back then, a lot of the movies were at least being produced by, I'm just looking at a history of Hollywood, the founding of Hollywood, and they were all Jewish men. And at least one woman, Mary Pickford, it turns out, Mary Pickford, the actress, had a really important role in shaping Hollywood in the early days. So women, maybe. I don't know. So note here that how anti-intellectual this is. The reason things are bad today, and you could argue things are bad today in a variety of different areas, is not intellectual. It's not philosophical. It's not ideas. It's not ideas shaping the world that are making the world worse. The reason, just think about how racist this is, blatantly racist. The reason some things are worse off today, now in his argument is everything is worse today, is because there are not enough white men in positions of leadership. But Biden was a white man. Bush was a white man. Nixon was a white man. Clinton was a white man. JFK, Johnson was a white man. They didn't do good things politically. There's only been one non-white male president in American history. He was bad, but he was that much worse than the white man. God, I'm looking for fields, areas in which whites are so superior. Basketball is much better. All right, let's go back to Matt Walsh. Why Ben Shapiro? And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Why Ben Shapiro would keep this bastard on? This ignoramus racist on his platform. Why he would keep him and not Tucker Carlson. Why he would keep him but not Candace Owen. This is why, as much as I can, once in a while, I'm tempted to say a nice thing about Ben Shapiro. I can't be on board with Ben Shapiro because he has this guy working for him. This is straight out racism.
Now, the fact of the matter is that a hugely disproportionate number of our greatest leaders, innovators, pioneers, explorers, philosophers, and so on, have been white men.
Now, that is true. A hugely disproportionate, that's much better than all. Hugely disproportionate have been. Yeah. The reasons for that we can discuss that have nothing to do with the whiteness of their skin, that have something to do with the geographic area where these ideas were successful, were adopted successfully. And, there's an element of accident in it, if you will. But does this make white men superior? Could Indians, Chinese, even, Middle Easterners, Arabs, Persians, Central Asians, could they achieve as much under the right circumstances? There's no doubt in my mind, but certainly Matt Walsh doesn't think so. Not at all. It's whiteness. And there are lots of white people, like 99.99% of white people, who haven't achieved much on the scale of shaping Western civilization, explorers, scientists, philosophers. And of course, a lot of really horrific things like communism, Nazism, fascism. I don't know, do you count Italians as white? I guess so in this context. Also white people. But let's not talk about that.
I mean, without white men, we wouldn't have airplanes or spaceships or trains or phones or light bulbs or computers or the internet or batteries or...
I mean, I like to say, without the Wright brothers, we wouldn't have planes. Or maybe we would. There were other people working on it at the same time. But, you know, without Thomas Jefferson, we wouldn't have had it when we had it. But is what made any of those people special, is what made the culture in which they lived special, is what made the culture of entrepreneurship special, the fact that they were white. Well, go to Silicon Valley today. Go to Silicon Valley today. And you will see that the next Wright brothers and the next Thomas Edison and the next whatever are not necessarily white. The Indians, the Jews, again, not clear if Jews are white or not. They're the Chinese. They might even be from the Middle East or from Central Asia. And what is, again, I need to ask this question because, I don't know, maybe one of you has an answer. But what does whiteness even mean? How do we measure it? Does he mean Northern Europeans? Real white? Then I'm not that impressed. Because, I mean, Southern Europeans have advanced civilization dramatically, particularly during the Renaissance. Who is he talking about exactly? Who are these white people? And what degree of genetic purity is required for you to be a contributor to civilization? Like, you know, if you're from Spain and you have some, I don't know, Berber blood in you, Berber genes in you, because many Spaniards do, because the Berbers were there for a long time. How about Arab? A lot of Arabs settled in Andalusia and southern Spain and conquered much of Spain and intermarried. There was huge amounts of intermarriage between the previous people who lived there, which happened to be Northern Europeans, Germans who had conquered Spain before the Muslims did. What percentage of your blood needs to be white to be considered white? It's disgusting, despicable, stupid, irrational, meaningless. But it's, you know, it's this fundamental tribalism, and it's a perceptual level mentality. I see the color of your skin. That I can see. Evaluate your character, understand history, pursue causality over history. That is way too difficult. That's conceptual. That means elevating myself. I mean, Matt Walsh is really the epitome of a kind of or he exhibits kind of the missing link, what we talked about Sunday, a mentality that hasn't reached full conceptual level, or maybe he just treats his audience as if his audience is that way. It's hard to tell what he actually believes.
X-ray machines or jet engines or rockets or 1,000 other things that our society depends on to exist and to...
I think he said the printing press. And just a historical note that the printing press, movable type printing press, was invented in China. China, as was paper. So the use of paper as we know it was a Asian invention. So it turns out that...
to flourish. We never would have had a railway system or the printing press.
Yeah, there's the printing press, right?
We wouldn't have this.
Really, we never had a printing press, if not for white men. That technology was not invented. Gunpowder. I mean, the Chinese invented a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. There was silk, weaving of silk, and of course printing press and gunpowder and many other innovations. Indians, can you imagine Western engineering and science without the number zero? Without the concept of the number zero? That was invented or discovered by Indians, Indian civilization, and transported to the West by the Arabs. The Arabs also made dramatic innovation in algebra, which is not European. Algebra was Indian and Indian, Central Asian, Persian, Arab. So where would we be without algebra? Just the ignorance of this guy, the stupidity of this guy. I mean, for 1,000 years, white men pretty much didn't do anything from 400 to 1400, while Persians and Central Asians and Arabs, and Chinese and Indians had flourishing civilizations. White men went nowhere. Maybe it would be interesting what happened to change that. What was the causal link that made it possible for suddenly white men to achieve things? Well, mainly had to do with the rediscovery of the ideas of a civilization in Greece, which is white. Do we know that? Do we know what the genes of the ancient Greece were? Who cares? Why does it matter? It's ideas.
Country, which was founded by white men and led by white men and expanded from coast to coast and settled and built up mostly by white men.
Maybe that has to do something with the fact that these same white men also enslaved black men, enslaved them, treated them as subhuman. David says Greek were definitely not white. I have no idea. Again, I don't know what any of this means. These are concepts that are bogus concepts. Race, as I told you, I don't think exists. There is no such thing as race.
Now, these are all facts.
Facts.
Historical realities that cannot be denied.
I just denied it.
It's just true.
I denied facts and
while
reality.
black women are encouraged to be proud of the historical achievements of black women, whatever those might be, and Asians to be proud of Asian achievements and Native Americans of Native American achievements and so on, white men are the one group in the entire face of the planet who've been forbidden to even acknowledge what other white men have accomplished, much less to express any pride in it.
What does it mean to express pride in the achievements of other people whose only connection to you is having a superficial, outwardly resemblance in the form of skin color? I mean, that's true of black pride and Asian pride and Native American pride and all these stupid, tribalistic, collectivistic views. Jewish pride. What do they mean? Can I be proud of Einstein? I'm proud that people from my genetic lineage, are responsible for the theory of relativity. Isn't that cool? No, it's not cool at all. Einstein's achievements have nothing to do with me. I am happy for Einstein's achievements. I celebrate them, and the culture that, in a sense, it made it possible for Einstein to achieve what he achieved. It still was up to him, but he needed a culture that, in a sense, embraced new ideas. Otherwise, like many geniuses before him, he would have never had an opportunity to express his genius. But that has nothing to do with the fact that he was Jewish, or the fact that he was white, or was he white? I don't know. It's not an issue of pride for me. Pride is an individual virtue. You can't even really be proud of your children. You can't really even be proud of your children because you didn't create them. Not in the sense of their soul, their achievements, their success. In my view, when a child does something really good, you shouldn't say I'm proud of you, because I think that's ridiculous. It's not about me. It's about them. I think what you should say to them is, you should be proud of yourself. You did that. Good for you. That's amazing. I mean, you create the material manifestation of a child, but the child still has to create itself from a perspective, intellectual and a soul and whatever it is that they do. They have to do it. And they should be proud of their achievements. It's not for you to be proud of their achievement. You can only be proud of yourself. The values you teach your kids do not cause them anything. We are not automatons. We are not deterministic. Children are not, treat them well, they will become good. It's very dangerous to go into parenthood believing that you will shape your kids. You can help. You can contribute. You can make it easier. You can make it harder. But objectivism's view of free will is that it's the individual's responsibility to make something of themselves, to make themselves into whatever it is they're going to be. The only responsibility for a child, unless you've really abused them, the responsibility for what a child is on them. It's only kind of modern pseudo-psychology that, oh, I did this because, my mother this or my mother that, or, my Oedipus complex or this complex or that complex, as if we're some kind of deterministic automatons. To raise a child right is to give them and to leave them open to the opportunities to take advantage of opportunities to make themselves the best that they can be. But I know great people, really amazing people, who had horrible childhoods, really tough, really difficult, with very limited opportunities. And I know people who were raised by parents who gave their kids everything, who really treated their kids well and gave them opportunities and treated them morally and taught them the right values and everything. And they turned out completely rotten. Completely rotten. You shape your soul. You're not a product of your environment. You're not a product of your genes. You're not a product of your skin color. You're not a product of your culture. All of those things, genes, culture, parents, make a difference. But it's the choices you make that make you who you are. Choices you make you who you are. And to a large extent, much of the field of psychology has been wrong about these things. Wrong. I mean, most psychology doesn't recognize free will. How can you do psychology without recognizing free will? All right. There's influence. You can have influence, but that influence is not binding. Influence is not binding. All right, let's finish up this clip.
God forbid. Instead, our society set out on a campaign to punish and exclude and alienate this very group. That is their reward for having carried the weight of Western civilization on their shoulders.
You didn't realize that the real atlases of the world are not the individuals of great ability, but they're white men. White men. I mean, God. I mean, Ayn Rand, woman, philosopher. Madame Curie. I mean, there are plenty of women. And again, whiteness is meaningless. All right, I'm gonna skip this. You get the point. This is kind of the collectivism, the tribalism, the racism that is eating away at the right. It's destroying the right. It's exactly what Ayn Rand predicted. It is an anti-conceptual mentality. You just gotta, those of you who attended the members-only show on the missing link. And if you didn't and you're a member, you can check it out. You have access to all those shows, all the members-only shows. So you can check it out. But those of you attended, you should recognize in what he says the mentality of a perceptual level human being. He positions himself and presents himself to the world as an intellectual leader, a commentator, a cultural critic, but an intellectual. And yet, he has not graduated from a pre-human state. He's not elevated himself to the conceptual level to see causal relationship, to be able to, trace ideas. Skin color, because he sees it. Because if you line up all the great achievers, most of them are white. There must be something special in the stuff that makes white white. I know I go after Matt Walsh a lot, but he deserves it, and he's got a huge following, and I think he says what a lot of people believe. He has. Okay, let's go to Bondi. Just a reminder that we have targets for support of the show. The show is made possible because of you. We have targets, $250 an hour. We're short of that. We're going to hit the first hour. We're definitely going to be well into the second hour. I can't go more than 2 hours today because I've got a hard stop. But let's at least make the first hour. Before we reach the first hour, we've got 10 minutes to get about $120. So 6 $20 questions. 6 $20 questions. Not $10 questions, not $5 questions, $20 questions. All right. So one of the amazing, heartening stories coming out of the horrific massacre, just a horrific terrorist attack on Bondi Beach, was this Ahmed El-Ahmed, who is a Syrian immigrant to Australia, who actually, jumped on one of the terrorists, managed to disarm him, saved the lives of many, many people, in the process, got injured because the other shooter shot at him and he was injured. He is doing fine. He's gone through surgery and doing fine. Anyway, he has this hero, legitimate, real hero. You can see the videos of it. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to do what he did. And we'll talk about some other heroes who weren't quite as successful as he was, sadly. But Ahmed is now being labeled a traitor in the Arab world for stopping a terrorist attack. The Facebook page of a Palestinian news source, right, in Ramallah. Ramallah is in the West Bank. They posted Ahmed's story. Almost all the hundreds of comments that followed were hostile. How dare he save Jews? Here's some quotes. Treason comes to you from the closest people. He sold himself and his life for the safety of the Jews. These are the Palestinians that Israel is supposed to have a peace with and is supposed to, give them a state of their own right next to Tel Aviv. I wish the bullet hit your heart. May Allah not heal you. This is, some of the representative of it. Anyway, some people in Australia did not feel that way, and there was a fundraising campaign to raise money for him, to support him, to reward him, if you will, for his bravery. The fundraising campaign raised $1.65 million, US dollars. That's well over 2 million Australian dollars. He was handed a check in hospital and he said something like, do I really deserve this? And the guy who gave it to him said, yes, you do. It's heartwarming. and good for the people who donated. And yeah, he definitely deserves it. He's a father of two. He's he works in Australia, as far as I know. He's not a welfare recipient, but on there. And yeah, Bill Ackman, the American hedge fund guy who Tucker Carlson happens to hate, gave 100,000 Australian dollars as part of the fundraising campaign. I wonder how much Tucker Carlson gave to a Muslim who stopped Islamic terrorists, but they were killing Jews, so maybe Tucker was for the terrorists. Ackman, not Ackerman. Sorry, Ackman. Yes, Ackman. Sorry. Anyway, this is terrific. I guess there's people all around the world who gave the money. But yes, good for him. Oops, I just closed something I didn't want to. There it is. So I did want to point out, if you haven't read this in the news, haven't seen it anywhere else, that right at the beginning of the attack, early in the attack, there was a couple, Boris Gurman and Sophia Gurman, both in their 60s. He's 69, she was 61, who noticed the one attacker with a gun starting to fire. They both jumped on him and tried to take the gun away from him. The terrorists overwhelmed them and shot them both and killed them. So there were people, civilians mostly, who actually took initiative into their own hands and engaged with them at the risk of their own lives. And in this case, they both lost their lives. In the case of Ahmad, at least he managed to survive, which is good. They, both Boris and Sophia lived right there. They lived in Bondi Beach in Sydney, Australia, and they were both killed while trying to stop the attack. So incredibly heroic, incredibly brave. Again, there's some questions about the police performance. It was ultimately a detective who had run from the station, who was a really good shot and managed with his handgun, with his pistol, to shoot the one attacker, to shoot him from a distance and stop him. So the police did stop it, but it took them way too long. And some of the police there were just very ineffectual. Even though they had handguns, they were not going to risk their lives. They were not going to take the risk, which I think is part of a policeman's job, to stop this kind of shooting. Finally, it's worth noting that a couple of days after the Bondi attack, law enforcement identified 7 men en route to Bondi. They'd received a tip about a possible violent act. The police rammed these vehicles and stopped them and arrested 7 Middle Eastern men, as my understanding is, who supposedly were going to do a follow-up attack in Bondi. So supposedly the men had set out from Melbourne, were heading to Bondi Beach, a 9-hour drive. They were arrested in a place called Liverpool, which is about 40 minutes away from Bondi. While the reason is unclear why they were driving there, the suspicion is that they were going to engage in terrorist attack. The police are investigating this as a terrorist investigation. So there's more where that came from, sadly. All right, let's see. That's Bondi. Yes, we talked about this a little bit the last few days, so I wanted to wrap it up. It turns out that the guy who murdered people at Brown University and murdered 2 students and injured another 8, kind of almost randomly, and then it was the same guy who murdered the physics professor the physics scientist in Brookline, Massachusetts. Same guy. We don't know exactly what the motive is, but it is the same person. So the Israelis were wrong. There was no Iranian conspiracy here. It certainly doesn't seem that way. This is a guy who actually knew the MIT professor, had studied with the MIT professor back in Portugal when they were both younger. He had come to the United States on an F1 visa and had studied for a year, I guess 2 semesters, at Brown. He had been accepted to Brown, but then left the university and got a green card as part of one of the lotteries. He got a green card from a lottery and stayed in the U.S. It's not clear what he did, but he stayed in the U.S. This other guy, the guy who was murdered, was also from Portugal, and he stayed in Portugal and got his PhD in physics, and then worked there, and then was hired by MIT and came over by MIT. They're both about the same age, in their late 40s. Hard to tell what exactly is the particular grievance, but it sounds like he had a connection to Brown University. He had a connection, this guy, to the professor, the scientist, and he killed them both. He killed in both places, and then committed suicide. Killed himself. So they'll never find out directly from him what happened, what exactly happened. What else did I want to say about this? So a lot of the theories about this is a leftist who wanted to kill the leader of the Republican students, that turned out to be bogus. The theory that this was Iranians turned out to be bogus. It turned out to be some crazy, frustrated, angry weirdo who did this. The break really came in police identifying him when somebody who had encountered him on Brown campus before the shooting came forward and described him in great detail and described his car and described all of that. And that's when it really broke, and when they identified who it is. And then once they had the car, they identified the car and then him as being around the physicist in Brookline's place. And it was just a matter of tracking the car and finding where it went to and where it led. So that's just to wrap up that story. All right, DOGE, a quick one on DOGE. There's really one thing that DOGE did well. Well is qualified, but did, and that is fire a lot of people from the U.S. government. So, I mean, you have to give them at least credit for that. The U.S. government went from over 3 million people. They probably fired about 250 to 300,000 people from the U.S. government. It's a question of whether those people will be rehired. It's a question of any of those people were doing anything that the government should be doing and therefore required. So it's down by 271,000 jobs. 271,000 jobs. Now, it's still a very small number overall. Out of 3 million, it's less than 10%. But yeah, I mean, government was bloated, too many people. I did mention the other day that in spite of this, government spending is up significantly during Trump's first 11 months. The deficit is also, I mean, the debt is also dramatically up. The deficit is stable. It's about where it was under Biden. Maybe a little smaller because there is some revenue coming in from increased taxes that have to do with tariffs. All right, 10% is significant. Not in the ballpark of kind of the cuts that Milei made. Not in the ballpark of what really needs to be done. Of course, what matters is not how many people you employ. It's how much money you spend. And employing fewer people but spending more money doesn't help you, doesn't help the economy. And that's exactly what the Trump administration has done. They're employing fewer people, but they're spending more money. So back at square one. Yeah, tariffs are awful. Really, really bad. just like all taxes. But they're particularly bad tax. But it's a tax. Americans are paying higher taxes. And surprise, surprise, revenue is higher. All right, a quick trade story. This side of Europe. So for years, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, for 26 years, the European Union has been negotiating with South American countries to establish a free trade agreement, a massive free trade deal that would lower tariffs and lower trade barriers between Europe and South America. A massive positive move for both Europe and South America. And it's taken them 26 years to negotiate this. I could have done it in one day. I'll charge you 0 tariffs and you charge me 0 tariffs. Done, finished. No, and no trade barriers, no other barriers. You can sell whatever you want in my country. I'll sell whatever you want in your country. That's my kind of trade deal. But anyway, the Europeans and the South Americans, it took them 26 years. And they were going to sign the deal this weekend. They were. They'd finally gotten everything lined up. I mean, this is a deal with Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia. And then on Wednesday, Maloney, who I've said some nice things about, but I take them back, Maloney had new reservations. And the French suddenly woke up and said, yeah, we too. And what are the reservations? They're farmers upset because the one sector in Europe that is most protected by trade, the one sector in Europe that they put massive trade barriers, tariffs, and other barriers in order to protect them, is agriculture. Farmers are the most cherished of all workers in Europe. And they don't want competition from Latin America. They know they will lose. I mean, look, you want to solve the cost of food issue, if there is an issue in Europe, start importing food from Africa. Africa could become the breadbasket of Europe. Africa could produce food much cheaper than Europe. It has massive quantities of fertile land. It has people eager to join the workforce and to start gaining wages by selling stuff to Europe. And of course, Europe is not going to do it because of its local farmers. So food is expensive in Europe. Why? Because it's all local. Local food is expensive food. When it's in a first world country. Because in a first world country, the actual value of labor is not in agriculture. I mean, the United States has seen a massive shrinkage of the number of people working in agriculture. Now, Europe has too, but far less than the United States. And the interest group that is European agriculture is massive. And so back to negotiations. I mean, the reason for this is farmers and tractors blocked roads. They set off fireworks in Brussels. They were demonstrating and rioting. The police had to use tear gas and water cannons to break up the riot. Farmers brought potatoes and eggs to throw at police. They burnt a wooden coffin bearing the word agriculture. We're fighting to defend our jobs. Our jobs. We have a right to a job, to our particular jobs. What about anyway? I mean, if this deal goes through, it's a huge deal. It'll benefit European Union dramatically, the people in the European Union. It'll benefit people in these Latin American countries, and yet they're stopping it because farmers might lose their jobs. Free trade has nothing to do with national interest. It has nothing to do with all this stuff. It has everything to do with special interest groups pushing and pulling for what they want. All right, I wanted to point out this. God, it's going longer than I thought it would. I want to point out this movement in America now that is really left and right, historically left and is now joined by the right. I called it the Stagnation Movement, the movement that wants us to stop developing, stop growing, stop investing. And specifically, where they're applying this ideology is to artificial intelligence. And of course, we've talked about Steve Bannon being a huge opponent of artificial intelligence and wanting to put a moratorium on it. Well, Bernie Sanders is joining him, not surprising. Bernie Sanders is now pushing for a moratorium on the construction of all data centers. He says, I will be pushing for a moratorium on the construction of data centers that are powering the unregulated sprint to develop and deploy AI. The moratorium will give democracy a chance to catch up and ensure that the benefits of technology work for all of us, not just the 1%. He also said, in the next 2 years, AI data centers will not only cause electricity bills to soar, well, you could solve that by building a lot of new power plants, then they won't cause them to soar, but are expected to generate the same emissions as driving over 300 billion miles. Oh, so it's climate change again. They're going to stop development. Oh, we've heard that again. We've heard that before. That's not new. So, you'd expect this from Bernie. It's not a surprise. This is part of the course. And of course, the kind of fearful Republicans who are afraid of technology and want to support the working class, you'd expect it from them as well. It's the same mentality as the farmers in Europe. What I find really upsetting is, this is all to be expected, is that the only argument that it seems to have any punch against these people, the only argument that seems to work against these people that conservatives or people in the center right are using is this. This is from the Free Press. But I wonder, who will still be doing AI work? Oh, right, China. So the problem with Bernie and Bannon and all these guys is we'll lose to China. China will do AI and we won't. Again, this collectivistic BS. No. The reason this is bad is that we, as individual Americans, won't benefit from the amazing stuff that AI is going to make possible for us. It's also a massive violation of the individual rights, property rights of the investors, of the CEOs, the workers, the companies that are heavily invested in AI. So we want to stop AI not for national security reasons. We don't want to stop AI for selfish, egoistic reasons that have to do with the well-being of Americans. We want economic growth because it's good for America, not because we'll lose to China. Lose to China is a side issue. That's not the main issue. The main issue is us. I'll give you another example. Another example of this, just the stupidity behind so much of what the central planners do. So early last year, 2024, iRobot, that makes Roombas, which is like the vacuum cleaner, the robotic vacuum cleaner, it was on track to be purchased by Amazon. Amazon wanted to buy them and invest and maybe create other robots because Amazon sees that the future might be household robots and they want to invest. But the Biden-led FTC, Lena Khan, and European regulators basically said, no, Amazon's too big already. That would create too big of a company or whatever, right? It would be anti-competitive. And they killed the deal. Now, just so you know, the Trump antitrust division functions under the same philosophy. There's no big difference. But the point is, so the deal was abandoned. Instead, iRobot has struggled, partially because of tariffs, partially because of competition from China, from Chinese robotic companies that are advancing significantly. And of course, on Sunday last week, iRobot declared bankruptcy, and a Chinese company is now taking it over and going to run it. Now, that's great. I'm glad a Chinese company is willing to take it over, and we'll still benefit from the fact that they'll probably innovate and they'll probably be these things. But the reason, and I'm sure some people are upset, oh my God, it's China's taking over, isn't that horrible? No, what's horrible is that this company was not allowed to thrive, and we weren't allowed to benefit from it thriving by being bought by Amazon. We are our own worst enemy, not China. China might be an enemy, not the worst. All right, I want to end on some good news. So we'll talk about the fact that just America is an innovation machine. This country, in spite of everything, in spite of the horrific politicians, in spite of the long line of statists that have existed in this country, in spite of the regulations and the tariffs and the taxes, and in spite of California, and in spite of all this stuff, this country is an innovation machine. I mean, look at this graph. This is a graph of the number of tech companies that report net annual profits of $1 billion or more. There are 62 such companies in the United States. Only 15 in China. Only 9 in Japan, 9 in Taiwan, 8 in the entire Eurozone. There are only 8. $1 billion of profit for a tech company. France, 3, Korea, 3, Germany, 2, United Kingdom, 1. United States, 62, more than all of these combined. Combined. Now, people ask, why is the stock market so high? This is why. We have the best businesses, the most profitable businesses, the most successful, innovative businesses in the world. It's not even close. Yeah. Among the world's 10 largest companies, 8 are U.S. technology companies. Among the 10 most innovative companies, 10 are based in the United States. I mean, the United States dominates when it comes to tech. And the reason for that is, basically 3 things. Well, 2 really. A relatively mild regulatory environment for technology. You can easily start a business. You can hire people, relatively speaking. So freedom, economic freedom that still exists in the United States. In particular, one of the areas in which this is important is we're still, in spite of how difficult it is to hire and fire in the United States, we still have much more freedom when it comes to employment than, for example, Europe. So people can move around. And on top of that, immigration, which Trump is trying to kill that golden goose. But how many of these 62 companies are run or were founded by immigrants? A big chunk. Immigration and economic freedom, to the extent that we have it. That's what, you can only imagine what that number would be if we really had economic freedom. In our dreams. All right. That, my friends, is the news for Friday, December 19th. The last Friday before Christmas. Thank you all for joining me. And I will now take on some of your Super Chat. I will also remind all of you that Super Chat is a great way to support the show, a show made possible through support from you. It is also, you can also do stickers to support the show and thus not have to ask a question. You can also support the show with Patreon, at Patreon. That would be a monthly support, not live here right now. And Patreon, just go to patreon.com and type in Yaron Brook Show. I also want to remind you that December 31st is going to be our year-end show. It'll be 4+ hours. It'll be a big fundraising event. I'll ask you to support the show going into 2026 and to allow for the show's growth, to allow for us to continue doing the interviews and continue doing the daily news shows and everything else. There will be a very, 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 very ambitious fundraising goal. So I'm going to need all the help I can get to get there. The max you can support the show on a super chat is $500. So if you want to do more than that, and I know some of you have in the past done more than $500, then please consider doing a one-time PayPal contribution and just say in the contribution, in the note there, that it's for the New Year's Eve show. And that way I'll count it towards our goal. All right, I'll just remind you of the Ayn Rand Institute, AynRand.org/start here, where you can sign up for Ayn Rand ARI live courses. I'll be teaching a course on public speaking. They're going to be courses on objectivism, a deep dive into the philosophy. These are amazing courses that will improve your understanding, your knowledge, and it's fun. You can take them live and participate in class. You can take them after the fact and just listen. You can do homework and get it graded. You can not do homework and not get it graded. Really up to you. And you get a discount, 10% discount for being a listener of the show. So 26 YBS 10. Michael Williams is a supporter of the show. And Michael has a project called defendersofcapitalism.com, defendersofcapitalism.com. Check it out. Check out the website. I've worked on with Michael on the program for many years, and he's both a friend and a colleague. Check out defendersofcapitalism.com. And finally, Alex Epstein, the leading authority on all things power and why electricity prices don't have to go up with the AI boom. Build more. Build more electricity production capacity. So follow Alex. Expand your knowledge. Make you better. He has these talking points that just give you the material from which to argue and debate people. So great to have that under your belt before family gets together on Christmas, where politics is the main topic of discussion. All right. If you have questions, use the super chat to ask them. $5, $2, $1. All right, let's get started with the super chat because I do have a hard stop. And I want to get through all the questions. David, at the risk of psychologizing, Shapiro reminds me of an Orthodox American Jews that are ultra-religious because it gives them cover for their identity crisis and the fact that they need a tribe to belong to. I don't know Ben well enough. There's certainly a tribal aspect of religion, which is part of it. But look, he grew up in this world. There's a certain, he studied this. I don't know what the psychology is, but he is very much committed to that world. And I think both socially, family-wise, he's also convinced himself that there's no possibility of values without religion. I mean, he comes at me with this silly, what about the hot girl at the bar? He believes he needs, I don't think he does, he believes he needs religious commandments in order to give him morality. So I don't know, but there's certainly a tribal aspect to it. But look, I don't know how many of the tribes support him politically. Certainly many Jews are not supportive of his views politically, although maybe among conservative or Orthodox Jews, he's more popular. Yeah, I don't know what drives him ultimately. Alex, would insider trading be illegal in a capitalist society? Why or why not? No, it would not be illegal because basically it's a victimless crime. There's no victim when it comes to insider trading. The fact that you have more information than somebody else is not a crime. That's reality. It's life. Now, there's an aspect you could imagine of insider trading that would involve contractual or fiduciary violation of your responsibility. So if you were CEO and your contract says you can, and I think the contract would say this, you cannot trade on certain types of insider information, and you did it, then you would be in violation of your employment contract, and you could be fired. You could imagine that if I had a contract with my with a printer who printed out my financial statements, that he couldn't use the knowledge he gained from reading those financial statements in order to trade, and then he did. Again, he would be in violation of a contract. But there's nothing prohibiting, if it's not contractually specified, insider trading. I'll give you one other context in which you could imagine insider trading regulations, but private regulations existing. If I wanted a list on the New York Stock Exchange and my shares be traded on the New York Stock Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange could say, we don't allow insider trading here. Here are the specifics. Here's what we mean by insider trading. That's the other thing. Insider trading is one of the least defined, one of the most amorphous terms in law that exist. But let's assume the exchange said, here are the things you cannot do. And we do this because we want to make sure that we get a lot of volume of trade, that people feel comfortable trading on our exchange. Then that's, again, a contractual thing between the firm, and therefore its managers and employees, and the exchange. So to the extent that there is fear, to the extent that, put it this way, to the extent that insider trading might do damage to the exchange because people won't trade, or to the firm in some way, then that is easily dealt with through contracts. But the fact that I sell my stock and somebody buys the stock, and the guy who bought the stock has more information than I do, that is not the basis to prosecute him. Thomas, would arguably returning to the gold standard cause significant problems at this point? What would be involved? I know it isn't going to happen. No, I don't think it would cause problems. I mean, it would involve massive deregulation. You couldn't just return to the gold standard and keep everything the same. That would be a disaster. The gold standard that I and those of us who believe in real free markets advocate for is not a central bank gold standard. It is a private banking gold standard, which means you'd have to completely deregulate the banking sector. You would have to make them private instead of basic arms of the government. And you would have to give them the ability to create their own currency, their own money, if they chose to. The government would have to stop printing. It would have to shut down the Federal Reserve. And banks could then take in gold and print or issue, not print, issue currency, paper money in exchange for it. And on other shows, I've described in greater detail how a system like that will work. The best authors about this are George Selgin and Lawrence White. But the transition would be complicated. It would have to be a number of years. You'd have to be very transparent in terms of the deregulation. You'd have to get rid of the Fed. You'd have to set a date where the dollar becomes convertible into gold. You'd have to set a date for closing down the Federal Reserve and reallocating all its reserves to the banking system. But it involves a complete reshuffling of the banking industry, which would require massive deregulation. And it ain't happening. Andrew, if one suffers from mysticism, one should fight like hell to overturn it and establish the proper metaphysics. reality is worth it, and it is being for reality, not just against mysticism, that is required to integrate it. Yeah, and it's being for reason. It's being for your life. Your life requires adherence to reason. Your life requires the use of reason. Mysticism is damaging for your life. So the motivation to overturn and to basically get rid of every last element of mysticism that might be in your thinking is that your life depends on it. Your happy life depends on it. Your successful life depends on it. Your flourishing life depends on it. Barry, I saw, Barry also did a sticker. Barry did like a big sticker, $50 sticker. Thank you, Barry. Really appreciate that. Thank you, John, for the sticker. Let me thank the stickers quickly. And thank you, Johnny, for the sticker. Who else do we have? Fred Hopper. Whoops. Karl Meisbach. And Johnny again. All right, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Okay, Barry has a question. I was told that all humans have intrinsic value. Is this true? It tends to raise a red flag for me, but I'm not sure how to answer it. I mean, the answer is fundamentally that there is no such thing as intrinsic value. All value is a value to someone for a purpose. So whenever there's a value, it's to whom and for what. Chocolate doesn't have intrinsic value. It has value to me. It might have value to you. And for what purpose? For the purpose of taste. Tastes good. Other human beings might have value to you. They do indeed, objectively. For what? To trade with. But there's no such thing as an intrinsic value. Nothing has intrinsic value. All value must answer the question to who and for what. All values are values to me. This is the big issue about environmentalism. The environment, nature, is not intrinsically valuable. This is why it's okay for human beings to change it. So, environmentalists view nature as having intrinsic value. That's why they get upset when we carve up a mountain to build a highway. But the mountain only has value to whom and for what? To some people as nice scenery to hike. For other people as a place to put a highway in order to get to the other side of the mountain. And then it's just an issue of property rights and who gets his values manifest. But it's only individuals have values. Things don't have value other than to individuals. Thank you, Barry. Good question. All right. Michael, how does reputation matter in a non-second-handed way? Well, it matters somewhat in that if you have a good reputation, then people are more likely to hire you or to want to befriend you or to initiate contact with you. So if I have a good reputation as a speaker, then I'll get more business than if I have a bad reputation as a speaker. So it's not a source of self-esteem, but it is, and it's not something you should strive to establish, but you should have a good reputation because you're a good person, because you do good things. And that reputation is of value to you because it can generate relationships and business. And that's not second-handed. Somebody who cares about reputation, lies for his reputation, manipulates for his reputation, that's being second-handed. Michael, has technology reached a point where it can't be effectively regulated into stagnation like other industries? That's why we're going to keep seeing exponential growth. Well, we're not seeing exponential growth. We don't have exponential growth, and we're not seeing it. So I don't think it will continue because it doesn't exist. We'll keep seeing growth. That's an achievement in and of itself. You don't have to be exponential. for it to be an achievement. But I don't think it's impossible, but it's to regulate tech. But it comes with a heavy political cost. So for now, it's not going to happen, and we'll continue to see growth. But that could change. So we have to be very, very diligent in fighting against the regulation of technology. Nick, thank you for the sticker. Oh, Wes came in with $50 question in addition to his sticker. He says, I finished The Collapse of the Western Mind. Holy cow, the world would be a better place today if paganism won out. At least it wasn't hostile to rational thinking and science. Yeah, I mean, but rational thinking and science is almost everything, right? That's where we get the modern world. So yes, I mean, the closing of the Western mind, which happened in the first 4 centuries, from 0 to 400, or to 500, that is the victory of Christianity over paganism, and not paganism, but over Greek ideas of Aristotelian Greek ideas, over the ideas of this worldliness and science. And just imagine what the world would be like if Greece had won and the Christians had lost. We could be 100, 150 years, or maybe 1,000 years. 1,000 years. We could be 1,000 years ahead of where we are today. 1,000 years of stagnation we could have avoided. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the book. It's striking. Now you have to read the book, The Reopening of the Western Mind. The Reopening of the Western Mind. Michael, same author. How can you argue the culture was less tribal 100 years ago, when blacks weren't considered human beings and women were considered property? Well, I don't think 100 years ago that's true. Most Americans 100 years ago did not consider blacks as subhuman, and I don't think they considered women as property. That was dramatically changing. But the reality was that when you went out into the wilderness to homestead in America in the 19th century, it was you. You weren't looking for a tribe. You were looking to build a life. You might have been a bigot in some part of you, but that didn't really manifest itself when you went out into the wilderness in Kansas or Nebraska and put up a farm and started, working. The same is true of people who went out there and started an industry or built a railroad. So there was an immense amount of individualism. So today the tribes are not quite as crude as racist and sexist, although those exist as well. Today the tribes are more political, but the tribalism is much worse. I mean, part of the feature of tribalism is a lack of individual thinking for themselves. And you got a lot more groupthink today than you did back in 100 years ago. G. Jeffries, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciate it. Somebody says, so John Lyon says, Yaron, I think you can generate more super chat questions by splitting the super chat into 2 segments. 1 news, 1 super chats, 3 more news, 4 more super chats. Maybe. I'm not sure why exactly. I'm not sure why. Because almost all the super chats are unrelated to the news. So I don't know why breaking it up would increase the number. All right, Michael. Are young people getting the sense that traditional conservatism is a failure? The alt-right Nazi ideology is a winning strategy? Well, they're getting a sense that traditional conservatism is a failure. Trump gave them that sense, that he succeeded by rejecting traditional Christianity. But they don't really have anything to unite them as an alternative. Some gravitate towards Groypism, or whatever you want to call it, Nick Fuentes. Some gravitate towards Tucker. Others, are still holding on to kind of a more traditional view of Christianity, of conservatism. There are all kinds of variations, and there's a battle going on right now within that world, particularly among young people, and what will be the winning ideology of conservatism moving forward. Eric says, after Ben Shapiro's speech, I think you owe him an apology. Definitely not cowardice. We need more like Ben call out the evil in the Republican Party. Yes, but I don't think I owe him an apology at all. I criticized him for things that I think he deserved criticism. And I think Ben he's drawn his line at anti-Semites. That's not a hard line to draw. That's not a hard line to draw. And he should have drawn the line at anti-freedom. And then he should be criticizing Miller. And he should be criticizing Trump. And he should be criticizing Bondi. And he should be criticizing Kash Patel. And when he is willing to draw a line where I think his ideas justify him drawing a line, I'm not putting words in his mouth. Do I think Ben Shapiro thinks it's a good idea to have fully armed ICE agents roaming the streets and harassing working immigrants? I think the answer is no. I don't think he believes in that. Will he criticize it? I don't think so. I mean, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. But I absolutely think he's a coward. It's just he's not quite as big of a coward. Like when it comes to anti-Semitism, that really goes to the root of his identity as a conservative Jew and everything. So he's willing to stand up for that. But he should be willing to stand up for other things. And if he stood up, and this is my argument when I criticized him, if he stood up on principle for the things he really, I think, believes in, if he stood up for the Founding Fathers, for capitalism, for freedom, as he understands them, not as I understand them, as he understands them, we would have never gotten to the point where Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes was big as they are. He helped create them, and I still stand by that. If he didn't employ Matt Walsh, I'd like him to criticize Matt Walsh for his racism. But he's not going to do that because that would alienate too much of his audience. He is a coward. Kim, if it's AOC versus JD in 2028, is U.S. finished? Well, I think freedom is clearly on the demise. And U.S. as the Founding Fathers envisioned it is finished. And we'll go through a period of much greater authoritarianism of left or of right. And then it's a question, what comes after? Can we resurrect America once it's finished in that sense? There's a sense in which it's already finished, right? Just look at ICE, just look at what's happening in this country and the kind of debates that are going on and the kind of arguments. There's not a lot there. I mean, we have to a large extent, we're starting from scratch. Oyvind, hi. Thoughts on flipping houses. I'm in the market for buying and identified an apartment. The flippers demand a high premium in a slow market. Tips. Well, I'm not sure what you mean. Flipping houses is you buy a place, you renovate it, and you sell it. Or just buy it and sell it. If you're just buying and selling, then you're risking the price going down in the meantime. And prices do go down sometimes. But renovating, adding value, and then selling, sure. But again, you're very, very much dependent on the market, on the real estate market, and whether it keeps on going up. Now, some places that's safe, some places that's not so safe. So it's risky, like any investment. It's not a sure thing. All right, Andrew. It struck me as important when I heard Rand say that metaphysics and epistemology cannot be separated. Can you expound on this point? Yes, I mean, metaphysics is the nature of reality, and consciousness is a part of reality. Epistemology is how we know, but that is, to some extent, you could argue a metaphysical question, right? It's a question about the nature of man. It's the nature of his faculties, the nature of what exists, and then No what? No metaphysics. So how do you untangle that? If you have a bad metaphysics, if let's say A is not A, how can you advocate for a epistemology of reason? What does that even mean? When there's nothing to identify out there, or what's identifiable is shifting constantly. So the two are completely interrelated and interconnected. It's true, you cannot separate them. How you know and what it is you know, what it is there is to know, are dependent on one another. The kind of metaphysics you have will, to some extent, determine what kind of epistemology you have. Jason, in the meeting after the strike ended, I made a 3-minute pitch to Moses Lake School District 161, encouraging Ayn Rand free books and essay contest, and offered an additional $2,000 prize to the district winners. That's great. I don't know if they're going to take you up on it, but that's great. You got Ayn Rand's name out there. You got the program's name out there, and maybe some teachers will jump on it. Good for you. That's how you fight for the future. Malcolm, would you happen to know why Shirley Temple, who Shirley Temple is? If so, any general thoughts? Keep it up. I usually make the live shows. I usually can't make the live shows. Shirley Temple was a child actress who then grew up and became an actress. She was a singer, dancer. She was super cute when she was a kid, and quite talented as an adult. So I think she was. I can't remember if she was the daughter of somebody. Was she a daughter of somebody important, of a performer? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, somebody that was very, very enjoyable, a very benevolent personality in the movies, at least, fun, and a good singer and dancer. She was funny too, I mean, have a generally positive view. Jennifer says she was an ambassador later, but I forgot to what country. Nick says that he watched all her movies when he was a kid. Linda said she became a UN ambassador. Anyway, yeah, I mean, definitely fun movies. Very, and again, good voice, good dancing, and funny. Maz, how on earth did I miss your chat with Jesse Lee Peterson until yesterday? I listened to it while driving and nearly crashed. I was laughing that hard. Yeah, that was years ago. God, I get harassed for that constantly, because he called me a beta male and all of that. And the number one argument I get on immigration is, but what about Israel? And it goes back to the Ayn Rand's missing link. It's a perceptual level argument that can't see differences between Israel and America. It's a stupid argument. It's an unsophisticated argument. It's a mindless argument. But he did it well, and people have repeated it since then over and over and over and over and over and over again. Yeah. But he is a white supremacist. He's black, but he's a white supremacist, which is pretty ludicrous, but true. Lone dissenter. The day after you answered the Beethoven question, I saw a CD box of Zell's Symphony Cycle at a used shop. Got it. And it's magnificent. Up there with the Gunther Wild and Kleiber. Big recommended. Yes. I mean, Zell was phenomenal. He was one of the best interpreters of Beethoven ever. The entire all of his Beethovens are good. I mean, the third is exceptional, but his fifth, his seventh, his sixth, his ninth, they're all good. So selling the Cleveland, I mean, yes, that in the 1950s and early 60s, you had some amazing orchestras and conductors in America. It's just amazing. Andrew, as an expert public speaker, what do you make of the constant tone of yelling in Trump's last speech? Many dictators yell their speeches. It is intended to be threatening. Does it project their fear? I think it's, yeah, in this case, I think it projected anger and fear, frustration. I'm doing so much good for you guys and you don't appreciate me. He knows what he's doing is not working, and the American people know it, and he's trying to convince them that in spite of the evidence of their senses, it is, and it's frustrating to him. And he's yelling out of frustration and anger and fear. Hoping to, through the yelling, get their point across. I also think Trump is slowly cognitively losing it, and I think that's part of it. I don't think he's. Some of the answers he gives to questions are so ludicrous, so crazy. Some of his tweets are so ludicrous, so crazy that you have to say cognitively many screws loose. Andrew says, I feel the same blunt, though harsh certainty expressed in James Carville's famous campaign line, "It's the economy, stupid," applies to solving the world's problems. It's altruism, stupid. Yeah, there's no question. And then, of course, the question is, why is it so difficult? Why is it so difficult to eradicate altruism? But yeah, if it is altruism, stupid, over and over and over and over and over again, in every aspect of our lives, it's... All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you to all the super chatters. Thank you for all you being here. Don't forget to go to patreon.com and become a monthly supporter. Don't forget to join us on December 31st. I will see you. There will be a show tomorrow, actually. Change of plans, schedule shifted, and I will be doing a show tomorrow. Topic to be determined. To be determined. See you tomorrow. If not, Monday. Bye, everybody.